Welcome to the Human Evolution Podcast, where we dive deep into the science, philosophies, and strategies that create real and lasting change. I'm Goldstein, and here we leave traditional self-help behind and map the real terrain of true personal development.
I know that yesterday you had a small procedure done and you sent me a video on it. I'm like, what the hell is this? Do you mind just filling us in on all that?
Not at all. It's called Cranial Fascial Release, and it is a very unique, very different experience where basically you go to a chiropractor and they take a balloon, they put it up your nose, and it's attached to a blood pressure cuff. So just imagine the balloon of a blood pressure cuff, and at the end of it, a small white balloon that they basically use like a small little earbud or something to put up one of your sinus cavities. The guy, in a matter of 2 seconds, just inflates it and then deflates it. But in that moment of inflation, what it's doing is the balloon puts a ton of pressure inside the sinus cavity and it expands out your sinus cavity and you get an internal adjustment. And that basically the concept is, there's a lot of different therapies out there, cranial sacral release, things like that basically people think about their skull as one big bone. But the skull is actually, I believe it's like 27 different bones that are attached together that when you're functioning well, they actually move with every breath you take. Think about stuff like clenched jaw. When you think about things like just amount of stress you have in your neck, etc., you kind of like start fusing those bones together and they don't move properly. So what this does is it actually kind of like creates that space for them for a moment by actually literally pushing them apart from the inside, which is just insane. And then from that point forth, you actually have the chiropractic adjustment. And with every breath from that point forth, you actually have that much more movement with it. And it's insane because you actually get emotional reactions that happen when you do it because your body, this is something that we're going to be talking about in the rest of the podcast and stuff that we've spoken about many times, but the body really does keep the score. And when you have that level of tension inside of you, the moment you release it, there's something that created that tension in the first place. And when you release it, you kind of like have that like moment of like, oh gosh, that was a big one. So it was really, really powerful. The only challenge of it though is, when you shove a balloon up your sinus cavities, your body tends to not be a big fan of it. So my nose just started running and did not stop running. I apologize if I'm a bit nasal now.
So how long has this been around for? Like when do you think this was discovered and people started implementing it?
I genuinely don't know. I'm taking an absolute guess here, and I hate to do that as long it's being put onto prosperity of a video, but like it's probably like a couple of decades old is my guess. But the name of it is Cranial Fascial Release, and it's just pretty amazing stuff and just a different way to do it.
I'm wondering, I've had to get my teeth capped several times because I could grind my teeth pretty bad. Like I do it all day. Yeah. So I'm wondering, I'm thinking ooh, that might not be a bad thing to look into when I get back to the US.
This is actually a treatment specifically for tightness in jaw and teeth grinding. It's not to say that they cure it. They obviously can't say anything like that. But a lot of the people that have gone through it, the tension that gets released stops you from clenching your jaw as much.
Wow.
And
I really like all day, even when I'm not anxious, it's kind of like a habit. It's really weird and it's very annoying. So that's interesting.
That's going to take us into the talk that we're going to have today about the Vipassana retreat, actually quite a bit about things like that. It's going to be a very interesting thing.
I love it.
Just to finish off with this, the doctor actually mentioned the fact that after he does this with people, a lot of people will mention about the fact that for the first time in their lives, they feel like their tongue actually completely fits in their mouth the right way. Because as soon as you expand, the jaw actually tends to relax. And you just get that element of my teeth feel looser, my jaw feels different. It's definitely something to look into. It's not something I could say whether I recommend or talk badly about. I'm pretty happy I did it.
Sure. So it's a series of 4 treatments. Obviously, you're in a great area for it because South Florida is known for, it's known for its weird medical procedures as well. Yeah, but it's got everything. Literally anything you can think of, whether it's cosmetic or anything experimental or on the cutting edge, they have that. So just to give people an idea, it's a series of 4 treatments. What's the approximate cost associated, if you mind disclosing?
It doesn't come across cheap. It's actually $1,000 for the 4 treatments.
Okay.
And he does them over the course. He actually wants them done in fairly short order from one from the other. So he likes to do it over the course of 1 to 2 weeks and just have everything done.
Yeah, I don't find that to be, this is coming from me, but I would have guessed more, especially just considering the amount of skill and the care that has to go into it. So actually, that's not bad for all 4. If you would have told me $1,000 per treatment, I would have been like, all right, well, that's a little bit much. But,
I really think it's worth it. In terms of you're getting an adjustment that you're not going to get anywhere else. And it's one of those things that you're in the office and out the office within a matter of 5 minutes. And so when you think about the fact that for 30 minutes with you, you spent $1,000. But for me, it's not about the amount of time spent. It's about the actual result obtained. But I know a lot of people don't tend to feel that way.
It's funny because I was talking to another person in our sphere, the functional health practitioner that we'll be working alongside and you'll meet here eventually. But so she says the same thing about her packages are priced at a certain rate that people are like, ooh, that's a lot. Then she'll say, well, I spent $3,000 getting getting a huge tree removed from my backyard, but you don't want to spend, people don't want to spend $3,000 on their health, so there's this weird disconnect of what, like, we'll spend a ton of money on a car we don't need or pool, you name it. And then when somebody's like, hey, this is going to be $1,000 for something that could really change your life, they're like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's people just don't tend to value those things. And this actually goes back to a conversation from last week about you, over the fact that we tend to believe that a person needs to be working very hard for a certain number of hours in order for us to value their time in that way. But for me, it's all about the valuing of results. And for me, it was a very simple decision to go for those $1,000 and just say, let's do this.
Yeah. I want to check into that when I'm down there. So before we get into the retreat thing, I have a little side note update, and this is just a curiosity.
I love it, sir.
As I've mentioned before, and I'll mention probably every chance I get, I used to be quite the heavy drinker when I was living in South Florida, to the extent where I would do it daily. I would work for a 12-hour day, then go to one of the happy hours, because as you know, like in Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, you could find a bar that's open at midnight. They're everywhere. Yeah, and they have happy hours at midnight. Actually, they used to have midnight happy hour because the service industry people that worked at the other bars would go to those places to hang out. So if I would start drinking early in the day to go to the beach or whatever, it was like, this is my fun thing to do when I'm off. And then when I was working hard, this is my thing to do to unwind. And as we spoke about before, because my brain's always going, it was the one thing that would it's like shooting Novocaine straight into my skull. I'm hungover right now. So yesterday I worked all day, had a great day. I actually got a lot done. A lot of it stemmed from our previous conversations about me kind of outsourcing or kind of taking certain things off my plate and tasking people. Yeah, it worked out very well. I mean, I've got we keep mentioning all these names that we should be getting sponsorship money from, but I've got things tasked out. So I have a long way to go with that, but things are moving in the right direction. So yesterday I had a pretty good day, very productive. And then about 4, 5 o'clock, because I usually work later than that, I'm like, I just kind of want a beer, but it wasn't out of a feeling of it was just like, I felt like I needed to reward myself. But I also think there's some underlying thing here where
we do need to discuss that. But that will be a different conversation. This is you have the spotlight right now. Trust me, if I had it, we'd be having a bit of a different conversation at this moment.
I like the aspect of sitting on a bar stool and like people watching. And it's an acquired taste. I do like the taste of beer, but not because I like it. It's because my brain's like, it makes you feel good, so drink more of this. I understand that part of it. But it was weird. Like I felt really good. I'm like, I'm gonna have a beer. And then it ended up turning into like 4 or 5, which is far less than I used to drink, but it's enough to really mess up my sleep. As we know, like any amount of alcohol during the day will really screw up your REM sleep.
Absolutely.
And everything else. So, I mean, obviously you can tell by I'm talking, like I'm not miserable right now, but I don't feel great, So, but I was like thinking, like, I'm like, God, it's like, even when I'm having a good day, and this doesn't happen often, this is maybe once every 14 days, I'll go have a few beers. Then I'll be like, that was really dumb. Then 14 days go by and I'm like, I forget. I'm like, I need to go do it again. So, but I'm thinking like, it's such a strange, and again, I know we're here to talk about the retreat, but I was thinking I need to bring this up this morning.
So the way I'm actually going to describe this is the way that Tony Robbins described it in Personal Power way back when. And it's one of my favorite descriptions. It's the way he says it is that if you think about a thermostat in your house, it's like if you set the air conditioning in your house at 70 degrees, what you don't realize is obviously you say like, if it's anything above 72, kick in and cool down the house. But the other thing you don't realize is if it goes anywhere below 68, it kicks in to start warming up the house because it's trying to keep it at an even 70 degrees. And so a lot of people look at their issues and they say that, well, it's me and my bad habits of like, I drink to relieve stress, whatever it is. And that is basically, let's call that the heating up aspect, bring you back up to 70 degrees kind of thing. But the other side of it is you've also got all these extra things associated with alcohol being a way of rewarding yourself that's going to bring you back down to 70 degrees. So it's in hypnosis and NLP is called anchors. You've actually set up very specific things in your environment that get attached to drinking that your mind says drinking equals this. So in that case, alcohol equals stress relief. Alcohol also equals celebration. And if you just release one set of anchors, you haven't done the whole thing. What you need to do is really just go deep into understanding what alcohol really meant to you in the first place. And really, aside from breaking the connection with alcohol, breaking all those different anchors. So what you had happen to you yesterday, and I'm sorry about the hangover you have right now, but for me, it's a matter of that is a really good bit of information to know, because now you know for a fact that it's not just stress relief. It's also the way you tended to congratulate yourself.
And also, I don't do myself any favors by inserting myself and spending a lot of time in, like any other human being, I have fairly okay self-control, but every now and again. So it doesn't help that I'm in tourist towns all the time and walking by loud bars with loud music. I mean, now look, when I lived in northern Minnesota or more places, I could just as easily go down to the store and drink beer on my couch. That didn't bother me either. But it's like, it is a little bit more of a draw when you go by, like, oh, they're having so much fun in there. Like, I want to go inside. And that doesn't mean I have to drink when I get in there, but I obviously, just like in any other circumstance where I've been drinking throughout the last, it's been a while too. I was a heavy drinker for over 20 years. It starts off, it feels really good. And like Andrew Huberman described, I'm one of those people that 2 or 3 beers in, or maybe 2, I get the euphoria, like the euphoric feeling now. But then what I do is I keep trying to chase, and I know this, but when I have fuzz, quote unquote, I'm not thinking, or another one or whatever. And then of course the bartenders, like, they see my empty bottle, they're like, you want another one? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So anyway, it's just that domino effect that sitting here now talking about it, I'm like, that's really stupid.
I mean, it's the worst time to make a decision. They always say never go shopping when you're hungry, right? Like, right. I mean, like, and specifically with alcohol, it's going to lower down your sense of inhibition to the point that you're just going to be like, hey, of course I can have another one. Life is great. I'm doing so well. And that's the thing that your brain is actually chasing on some level, because it wants that ability to feel a bit more free. It wants that ability to feel a little bit better about life. And so you want to feel a bit more non-caring about the decisions that you have to make, because every other point in your life, you feel like every decision matters so much. So the thing I want to get to you with, and I really hope that we get there very soon, is getting to the point that you experience so much freedom in your life in so many other places that the need for alcohol drops away. The way I like to describe it to people is we basically, for lack of better wording, have parts inside of ourselves. So inside of Lee, there's this tiny part that sits there saying alcohol equals freedom. And what I want to help you discover is the fact that so many other things can equal freedom, that alcohol just becomes another choice. I don't want to take away your choices. I don't want to make you afraid of alcohol. What I want to do is have you discover a life where you could have alcohol, but who the hell needs it? It just doesn't do the same shit for me.
Like I said a few years ago, and I was very high functioning, but I was always drinking at some point during the day. And now I can honestly say, and again, I know people say this, but I can honestly say that I could go the next 10 days and still think of like, I could use a beer, but I can keep myself doing it. The funny thing about what you said about the freedom and everything too is like, so rewarding myself, because I need to I need to find something else that when I have a good day to celebrate, whatever that may be, I need to have another outlet, or at least a list of things to do, versus because the thing is, my go-to is like, go have a few beers. And you know what else I do? And I realized, I recognized this last night, usually has to do with income and everything else. It felt really good for me. I'm going to leave this in, even though it's going to irritate some Canadians, but Canadians don't generally tip because it's just not in their culture, just like the Europeans don't. So no offense to them, they just don't leave tips. I'm not saying none of them do. I'm just saying they're not raised doing it. And honestly, the American culture of tipping is kind of screwed up anyway. The way we pay our industry workers so low that they have to live on tips. It's kind of a messed up system. Yeah. So down here, there's a lot of Canadians and very few Americans. So it also feels good to me when I'm at the bar, and I've worked so hard lately that I've got, a wallet full of pesos, and the bartender's not being tipped by anybody else. So when I go to leave, I can leave her a very generous tip, because that feels good to me. But that's also, I think, directly linked back to, I worked really hard, I make enough money, so I'm drinking and then the tipping and everything. I love
that you're seeing all this. I love that you're seeing all this. It's one of my big rules, and we're actually going to have to get into this at some point in time, but definitely not today on this level, is what I say, you have no clue how to make yourself happy. And the easiest way to kind of like describe that is, you believe that you'll be happy when you're rich. So in the moment, what you're going to do is you're going to forgo all your happiness to work really hard to become rich, because when you're rich, you'll become happy. Whereas what if you just chose to just be happy today, regardless whether you're rich or not? And at that point in time, you get to the point of like, money, no money, it really doesn't make a difference to me. Obviously, like, money equals so many other things. Money equals the ability to purchase certain things, gives me the ability to hire people to do certain things. Absolutely. But I no longer have money equals happiness, because being alive equals happiness. And so that is a true way to make yourself happy, is just in the moment become happy. And so for you, you've got this kind of thought in your mind of, after a hard day's work, I get to allow myself to feel abundant for a moment. And what I want you to do is, I want you to get to a place that you absolutely feel abundant every moment, and that you can walk up to a person and hand them a freaking $10 note just because they're on the side of the street, not because you had a good day. At which point in time, that part inside of you that felt the need to tip the bartender, go ahead and tip someone by all means. But like, it doesn't need to be attached with the fact that you are specifically in a bar and that you're better than the Canadians or whatever it is that's going in your mind in that moment.
That's right.
It's matter that in that moment, you just say, I'm abundant. And abundance doesn't always have to be in money. Abundance can sometimes just be in information, that you just share with people certain things that like I feel absolutely abundant from. It's, and obviously that wasn't recorded, but sharing with you and Natalie something a few days ago that I know got a chance to help you. And I left that meeting feeling so abundant because I got to share information. And that just lit me up for so many, like for a couple of days afterwards even. Like, it's just in terms of the fact that it is that way. And it's just a matter of living in that place of abundance. And in the same way, getting that sense of freedom, you say, I feel free when I drink. And I say, you have no clue how to make yourself happy. Learn to to live freely every moment of your life. And alcohol becomes a free choice that you get to have or not have, but not something that your brain says, that's the way I can finally feel free because I don't feel free 24/7 for the rest of my life.
That's the gist of it right there it's just, that's the go-to thing. And even now, even though I kind of knew I was doing it yesterday, because I'm like walking towards the bar that I usually go to. When I say usually, like I said, 7-8 days in between, I'll drop in. I'm walking towards it, and I'm like, there's music in there. So, but I definitely make that connection for sure. And yeah, it's probably I just need to find more things to as a reward.
So that's the part I want to stop you at. I don't want you to find more things as a reward, because you're still going to that place of not actually allowing yourself to be happy by just being happy. I don't want you to reward yourself. I want your life to be the reward. I want you waking up in the morning to just be like, I get to have a great day today. It's like, obviously, reward yourself in 20 million different ways throughout your whole day, like in every single way you can. But I don't want you to feel like you need to reward yourself for a job well done. I want you to feel worthy of reward every moment of every day.
I'm reminded of something also when just how we get used to certain stations in life. Like I'm in the Marriott right now in Playa del Carmen, and I'm here because my previous job, it would send me all over the place to travel. It was company money, it wasn't mine. But I made it up to titanium level, which is a lot. I think the company had to spend like $80,000 at the Marriott on me in 2 years. It was a lot of money. And I'm sitting here, this beautiful, I won't pick the camera up and turn it around, but it's a beautiful, but like to me, this is just where I work. Whereas a couple of years ago, I would have died to be able to come in here and sit all day and have people bring me food.
You're getting it. Like, that's exactly it. I want you to look at your life and feel that sense of abundance and feel that sense of just appreciation for everything that's going on inside of you because of the life you created, because of the things that you made it through. And I'll just give you one stupid little example of this as such. It's I'll talk to a person that was abused as a child, terribly, terribly abused as a child. And they'll sit there telling me about their abuse. And I'll sit there kind of like the Good Will Hunting thing, kind of like sit there and say, but you made it through. And they go, yeah, but let me tell you about the abuse. And I'm like, but you're happily married with children now. And they go, yes, but let me tell you about the abuse. And I'm like, do you understand how strong you are for having made it through there? And you're completely ignoring your strength in order to tell me about your moment of weakness. And I understand how that happens, but the hypnosis I'm trying to break for them in that moment is attaching to that sense of weakness. In the same way that the hypnosis I'm trying to kind of create for you right now on some level is that ability to look at your life and go I'm sitting in freaking Marriott with titanium level status, and younger me would be sitting there ready to offer me sexual favors for the kind of shit that I've got going on right now. And I'm completely ignoring it because that's normal to me. Stop making it normal and start realizing the fact that you're a freaking home run hitter. And then you don't need to go to a bar to feel good about yourself.
It's funny because a lot of people that have only been working remotely like myself for a couple of years now, and there's nothing against hostels. It's just I'm too old for that. I'm not staying I was in the military. I don't need to live in a goddamn bunk beds with other people. A lot of the people I travel around with or see in my travels, they stay in them because that's all they can afford. And look, that's great. They're happy, whatever. But I'm like, oh, there's no way, And then here I am just complaining about it's cold in the lobby today, and I'm waiting for my cappuccino to be delivered over here, thing. So it's really just taking a step back every day and putting yourself in check.
100%. And that's what I'm talking about. The whole idea of you have no clue how to make yourself happy. And I want you to always be striving. I want you to always want more. That's what life is about. I don't want you to sit there and go oh great, I have the best life, it's time for me to die. But I always want you to want more. But I want you to want more from a place of just absolute abundance already, and sit there saying what else can I create in this beautiful life? It's not a matter of my life sucks and let me make better things so it stops sucking. It's a matter of my life is absolutely wonderful and I feel this urge inside of my soul to do more. I want to share more with the world. Let me go ahead and do that. And what you do is that you sit down in front of the computer every day with just absolute passion. You talk to people with just such a sense of intensity and just such a sense of joy that you want to just overflow onto the world. And that is where it comes from. It's just that place of just understanding the fact that you are living the perfect life that you created for yourself. That the fact that you're 43 years old, living in Playa del Carmen right now, and able to move whenever you want, and have clients that pay your bill, and can go to the Marriott, and have the ability to, whenever you want, go to that bar and spend as much as you want, and throw down a great tip for that bartender whenever you want to do it. Instead of sitting there saying that's my life, you go that's my fucking life, dude. Do you understand that? I kind of want you to walk up to that younger you and get that high five that you so genuinely deserve for what you've created and live in that place every moment of your day. And for me, when I was actually like in that place of not completely having this mindset yet, and I mean, I don't necessarily want to share what's written on it, but like I will share that there is a card that I have that right now, while we're shooting this podcast, is right in front of me of my life vision and my life dreams. That's sitting there right in front of my face right now as I sit here talking to you. That is the card I made that exists with every single thing I choose to make myself become on that card. When I was making that shift for myself, I actually would stand in front of the mirror with a magic marker and write on my body with magic marker. And obviously I would cover it with a shirt, so like it wasn't a big deal. But for myself, I would every single day mark my body with like the sense of like a heart or something like that. And however cheesy it is, and it is so cheesy and it is so stupid, but it actually reinforced for me the fact that like I was doing something different because I wasn't willing to be the same me that I was a month ago, that I'm going to absolutely enforce these thoughts into my mind. And it took a while, and now I know that there's much better ways to do it. But nonetheless, that in itself was actually a very, very powerful thing. I slept I actually still do, slept asleep with a piece of paper under my bed with like my vision for my life. That like just when I put my hand under my pillow, I feel that piece of paper, and in the back of my mind, I know what that means. Because at the end of the day, like, I mean, if you're going to be living life, live your freaking life by design. You know, it's like, it's one of those things to remind yourself. So like, I mean, the risk thing is great when you do something wrong. That's amazing. But I'm also sitting there saying like, do whatever you can to put the reminders in your life of how wonderful your life is, of the life you're choosing to create. And the one thing I definitely want to mention here, because a lot of people tend to do this in a very messed up way, and this is what I have a large issue with a lot of the secret law of abundance stuff, is that they imagine this amazing life, but then they sit there very upset about the life that they are living right now in contrast to it. That they sit there saying, oh, one of these days I'm going to be a billionaire, but look at me right now, like I can't even afford the 2-minute noodles. That isn't the way to do it. It's a matter of in the moment, realizing the fact that you made it through, realizing that you are powerful today, turning around to that person that was abused as a child and has all that hell and say, do you understand that you are now no longer living in that environment, that you are an adult, that you're in a safe place, that you have all these resources currently today. And of course, we're going to make it better, but that's the place of expansion through joy, not necessarily of expansion through necessity, because today sucks.
I definitely want to get into that. I'll have to bookmark that for a future show, is people that have gone through things. And this is, again, coming from somebody with no serious childhood trauma, but the people do tend to hold on to things even into their later in life. And I'm very, very sympathetic to that. And I'm like, gosh, you know, like you're just like, why you're still living back there, man? It's just like, you can't let it ruin you until the day you die, you know, kind of thing. So
I want to reinstate that video that we went over last week, specifically the Good Will Hunting video, because that explains it better than I ever could. That literally what's going on in that moment is that they're still stuck in that identity of, in this case of Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon, of the sake of, I'm the delinquent. That's just who I am. I'm the bad boy. And Robin Williams says to him, it's not your fault. And he's like, yeah, of course I know that. And that's kind of like what we do to those people in that moment. We go like, look at your life right now. And they sit there going, yeah. But like, you don't understand. I was abused and I'm really scared in this world. And you go, no, but look at your life right now. And they go, oh yeah. But have I told you about my abuse? And what we need to do is literally, like, that's what I say that my mission on this world is, probably the biggest one, is to not physically, but sometimes even if necessary physically, but actually slap them into reality and sit there saying, look at your life right now. Look at how beautiful it is.